There's something profoundly humbling about watching someone you love grow old. It happens slowly, and at first, almost invisibly. A slight hesitation while walking, a quiet sigh where laughter used to be, a pause before responding to a familiar name. Each moment easily brushed off until the picture becomes clearer. Aging is not a straight line. It's a winding road with moments of light and shadow, strength and vulnerability. And when someone enters the final chapter of life, there are signs, often subtle, that speak louder than words, if only we know how to listen. For many, the signs come not in dramatic medical emergencies, but in quiet transformations. They begin to withdraw from the world. A once chatty grandmother now prefers to sit in silence, gazing out the window instead of joining family conversations. The once lively grandfather who never missed a Sunday outing now declines invitations and seems content doing nothing at all. At first, it seems like simple fatigue or perhaps a momentary mood. But gradually, the pattern settles in. It's not about sadness or depression, though those can be part of it. It's something deeper, a gentle turning inward. The soul, perhaps, beginning to shift focus from the noise of the world to the stillness within. One of the most overlooked signs is the change in sleeping patterns. You may notice that your loved one is sleeping more during the day and staying awake at odd hours of the night. They may appear drowsy even after what seems like a full night's rest. This isn't just aging. It's the body slowly changing its rhythm, conserving energy, preparing for a quieter way of existing. Meals become smaller, less frequent. Appetite fades, and favorite dishes are left half-eaten. It's not just pickiness or forgetfulness. It's the body no longer demanding what it used to. Digestion slows, taste changes, and sometimes there's simply no hunger. You might feel frustrated trying to coax them to eat, insisting they finish what's on the plate. But this isn't about nutrition anymore. It's about comfort. The goal isn't calories, but peace. And that shift can be difficult for family members to accept, especially when they've always seen food as a symbol of care and love. Another sign is the change in conversation. People in their final year often stop talking about the future. They stop planning trips, stop worrying about birthdays or holidays. Instead, they reminisce. Their thoughts return to their childhood, to people long gone, to memories that surface without warning. They may tell the same story more than once, not out of forgetfulness, but because those moments are closest to their heart. You might find that they speak in metaphors, mention seeing loved ones who've already passed, or express a feeling that something's coming. These aren't hallucinations, necessarily. They're spiritual experiences, signals of a mind and soul beginning to prepare for transition. It can be disconcerting to hear your parents speak of long-deceased relatives as if they've just visited. But in many traditions, this is seen not as a symptom of confusion, but a sign of the veil thinning between this world and the next. Physical changes follow closely. Skin becomes fragile, almost translucent. Veins stand out more prominently. Bruises appear more easily. Hands and feet may grow colder as circulation slows. The body prioritizes its core functions, drawing warmth and energy inward. Breathing may become more shallow, with occasional pauses that catch you off guard. You might witness moments of labored effort followed by long silences, as if their body is learning how to breathe differently. For caregivers and loved ones, these signs can be both terrifying and surreal, but they are often not painful, not violent. They are gentle signals, like the tide receding from the shore. There is also a change in energy, a kind of physical letting go. Tasks that once seemed simple become burdensome. Bathing, dressing, even standing for a few minutes can feel overwhelming. You may notice a decline in hygiene, not out of laziness, but because the effort feels too great. This can be hard to witness. The independent person you knew is now relying on others for the most basic care. And yet, there's often a quiet dignity in this stage, a grace that defies words. If you take the time to sit with them, without rushing, without trying to fix or change anything, you may find moments of incredible clarity and beauty. A gentle smile, a soft hand squeeze, a look that says more than 1,000 words. Mentally, there can be periods of confusion, forgetting where they are, mixing up dates, repeating questions. But just as often, there are moments of profound lucidity. They may say something deeply insightful, something that cuts straight to the heart of life. These glimpses are gifts. They remind us that even in decline, the spirit remains vibrant. They may talk about forgiveness, about regrets, about love. They may open up in ways they never have before. This is the time to listen, not to correct or redirect, but simply to be present. You might also notice emotional shifts. Anger, fear, sadness. These emotions can rise and fall like waves. But so can peace, gratitude, and acceptance. Sometimes, all of these exist at once. It's important to remember that dying is not just a medical process. It's an emotional, spiritual, and relational one. It is, in many ways, the final act of a life being lived. And like any great act, it deserves attention, care, and reverence. One of the greatest acts of love we can offer someone in their final year is simply to be with them. Not to fill the silence with words, not to rush to solutions, but to sit quietly, hold their hand, and let them know they're not alone. Small acts mean everything. A gentle touch, a warm blanket, a familiar song. These are the ways we speak love when words fail. As time goes on, you may feel the air change. There's a stillness that settles in the room. Days blur together, and time seems to move differently. And yet, within that stillness is a sacred kind of presence. You may find yourself reflecting more, cherishing the little things, a smile, a whispered thank you, a shared tear. The final year of someone's life is not only about preparing for death, it's about celebrating a life. It's a time to say the things you've been meaning to say, to forgive what needs forgiving, to express gratitude. These are not just goodbyes. They are declarations of love. It's also a time to care for yourself. Watching someone you love fade is emotionally exhausting. There's grief before the loss, a quiet mourning that begins long before the last breath. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, to cry, to laugh, to remember. You are not just a witness to their journey, you are part of it. And in walking beside them, you are performing one of the most sacred acts a human being can do. As the final moments draw near, many people experience what's known as terminal lucidity, a surprising moment of energy or clarity, as if they are saying one last goodbye. Some may call out the names of loved ones. Others may smile and look towards something invisible yet comforting. These are not moments to fear, they are moments to cherish. The final breath is often soft, barely audible. And in that moment, there is both an ending and a beginning. What remains is not just memory, but love. The signs of the final year are not meant to scare you. They are meant to guide you. They are the body's way of saying it is ready. They are the soul's way of asking for presence. If you are watching these signs unfold in someone you love, know that your presence matters. Your love matters. And even in silence, in stillness, you are speaking volumes. Because when the end draws near, it's not the grand gestures that are remembered, it's the quiet ones. The nights spent holding hands, the stories shared under dim lights, the warmth of a familiar voice saying, "I'm here." These are the moments that stay, the moments that carry us through grief, and the moments that remind us just how powerful love can be, even in the face of death. They say we die the way we live. So let us help our loved ones die with dignity, peace, and the knowledge that they are deeply, unforgettably loved. And in doing so, we give them the greatest gift of all, a beautiful ending to a beautiful life.
And as the days stretch onward, something remarkable begins to settle in your soul. You realize that even though the world around you may have shifted, you haven't lost the essence of who you are. You've simply distilled it. The noise of life has quieted, and in that silence, you start to hear yourself more clearly. You think back to the decisions you made in your 20s or 30s, and instead of regret, you feel understanding. You see your younger self not as someone who got it all wrong, but as someone who was learning, just like you still are today. There's grace in that kind of reflection, a tenderness you develop toward your own story. You become softer with yourself, and you start to forgive the parts of you that tried but stumbled. Because now, you know that trying was brave enough. There's also a gentle clarity that emerges after 80, a sense of what truly matters. You stop wasting energy on things that drain your spirit. You know which relationships nurture you and which ones feel one-sided. You learn that peace is more important than being right. That time spent in quiet joy is more valuable than busy schedules or superficial conversations. You treasure simplicity in a way you couldn't have appreciated when life was louder. A good book, a warm blanket, a familiar view outside your window. These things hold the kind of comfort that no amount of status or noise can replace. And in that simplicity, you begin to rediscover contentment. You also begin to value your emotional energy differently. You become more selective with where you place your attention. You no longer chase after every opinion or feel the need to correct everyone. You learn the rare power of silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from being ignored, but the kind that comes from choosing peace. You watch arguments pass you by and think, it's not worth it. You hear gossip and let it float away. You notice how the wisdom of your years has made you less reactive, more thoughtful. People may mistake it for indifference, but really, it's the mark of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to enjoy. Another quiet truth about this stage of life is that you start noticing details others overlook. The way the sunlight filters through the curtain in the early morning, the sound of birds outside your window at dawn, the comforting smell of something baking, even if you no longer cook as often. These tiny moments bloom into small joys that others rush past. It's like your soul starts capturing snapshots of beauty as if it knows to savor what's fleeting. You've learned not to rush past life, but to absorb it breath by breath. As it comes to the same time, you may feel the weight of being the last link in the chain. The last sibling, the last friend from your old neighborhood, the one holding the stories, the recipes, the laughter of generations past. It's a heavy kind of honor, being the keeper of memories. Sometimes it feels lonely, like you're carrying a photo album in your heart that no one else can see. But then, in moments of conversation with younger people, you pass along a story, a phrase, a truth, and you see it land. Their eyes light up, they pause, and in that instant, you realize that you are the bridge between what was and what will be. That is a role of profound importance. And even though some days may feel long, you start to appreciate how far you've come. You look at the wrinkles on your hands and see the miles they've covered, the tears they've wiped, the hands they've held. You look at your eyes in the mirror and see the clarity of someone who has seen joy, loss, and everything in between. There's beauty in that, a beauty no makeup or filter can replicate, a beauty that is lived, not applied. After 80, life is not over, it's deeper. You laugh differently, cry differently, sit with your thoughts differently. And if people would only slow down long enough to ask, they'd realize the immense treasure that sits within every older person they pass by. because inside every senior is a library of lived experience, a universe of wisdom, pain, humor, and insight just waiting to be opened. And when someone finally does take the time to open that book, they never walk away the same. As, oh, if you're watching this and you're over 80, or you're loving someone who is, know this, you are not in life's shadow. You are standing in a light that's more golden, more grounded, and more generous than any season before. You've earned the right to be heard, to be seen, to be honored. And the more we talk about the realities, yes, even the hard ones, the more power we give to those who are walking this path with courage every day. And then comes another subtle shift that few anticipate: how your relationship with time transforms completely. It no longer feels like an endless stretch of days, but rather something you hold gently, moment to moment. The mornings feel softer, the afternoons quieter, the evenings more contemplative. You stop chasing the clock because you've come to understand that what matters isn't how much time is left, but how fully you live in the time you have. There is no race anymore. There's no pressure to perform. Instead, there's presence. Real, grounded presence. You find yourself sitting longer with your thoughts, appreciating silence as if it were music, feeling that even a slow afternoon breeze can be its own kind of celebration. And in this stillness, you also begin to notice a strange kind of bravery within yourself, one that younger people often mistake for passivity. But it's not about giving up. It's about choosing your battles wisely. You've lived through enough to know that not every disagreement needs a response. Not every situation needs your energy. There is courage in letting go, in choosing peace over proving a point, in accepting the things that cannot be changed while still nurturing the strength to speak up when it truly matters. That kind of wisdom only comes from experience, and you've earned every ounce of it as the years pass. Your perception of success evolves too. It's no longer about accomplishments, awards, or recognition. Success becomes the quiet satisfaction of knowing you raised good people, that you touched lives, that someone still thinks of you every time they bake that cake you taught them to make, or repeat a phrase you always used to say. Your legacy isn't in the headlines. It's in the hearts you've impacted. You've come to realize that it's not the big achievements that define a life. It's the small, consistent acts of love and kindness that leave the deepest marks. And perhaps the most humbling realization after 80 is how much you still desire to be needed. That part never fades. No matter your age, you want to feel like you still matter, like your presence still makes a difference in someone's life, that your advice is still relevant, that your voice still carries weight. And it does. Even if the world forgets to say it, even if people overlook it, you still hold tremendous value. Just being here is meaningful. Your wisdom, your warmth, your history, they're all gifts to the world. And when someone finally pauses to sit with you, to ask how you're really doing, to listen with full attention, it feels like sunlight breaking through clouds. There's also a growing tenderness in the way you view other people. You find yourself less judgmental, more understanding. You no longer see things as black or white. You recognize the gray areas, the struggles behind the smiles. You've learned that most people are just trying to make it through their own storms. And so you become gentler, not only with others, but with yourself. You no longer hold yourself to impossible standards. You embrace your imperfections as part of your story. You start to realize that vulnerability is not weakness. It's a form of truth. And there's great strength in being real, in no longer needing to pretend you have it all together. This stage of life also has a way of revealing who truly matters. The friends you still call. The family members who show up not out of obligation, but out of love. The people who see you, not for what you can give, but for who you are. These are the relationships that become your oxygen. You no longer entertain surface-level connections. You want depth. You crave sincerity. At 80 and beyond, every moment of connection feels precious. A conversation over tea, a slow walk through a garden, a handwritten letter in the mail. These aren't just pastimes. They're lifelines. They are proof that life still pulses with meaning, even in its quieter rhythms. And sometimes, late at night, you may find yourself talking to the people who are no longer here. Not out loud, but in the soft chambers of your heart. You carry them with you. Your partner, your parents, your childhood friends. They're not gone entirely. They live on in your gestures, in your thoughts, in the way you pass down their wisdom. You become a vessel of memory. And though it may feel like a lonely burden at times, it's also a sacred role. To remember, to honor, to keep their stories alive in a world that moves on so quickly. In these later years, you've also come to understand that joy isn't loud. It's not a party or a performance. It's the warmth of a blanket fresh out of the dryer, the satisfaction of a neatly folded newspaper, the familiar tune of a song from your youth playing softly in the background. Joy after 80 is found in the ordinary, and that makes it all the more extraordinary. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply exists, waiting to be noticed. And because you've slowed down, you see it more clearly than you ever did before. And finally, you learn to hold grief and gratitude in the same hand. You can feel the ache of missing someone and still smile at a fond memory. You can mourn what's lost and still be thankful for what remains.